we touched on this a little bit, but the cross-border infrastructure is so vital between our two countries, between our states and provinces. How can your provinces and our states work together to improve cross-border infrastructure? I'll start with you, Chairman Moe.
Well, I would say we keep discussing on the state to province level as well as at our federal administrations. Listen, the benefits are just too large to walk away from. And for instance, you can start with air, of course, but road and rail infrastructure, of which we desperately need going across the border, and our border ports, of which we've had some discussions on over the course of the late last year with Governor Bullock and others. But we need the road and rail infrastructure so we can bring in those big red tractors and those green combines from Illinois so that we can grow our oats and our canola and send that back down to be refined into canola oil and oats, and then create jobs in Iowa and other places in the U.S. so that we can ship this agri-food product then around the world. And you can see how it's beneficial for not only us in Canada but for the agri-food processing sector in the U.S. Well, the same holds true, and we would be likely the second largest energy producer in the nation, barring possibly Newfoundland. We're back and forth a little bit, but the energy infrastructure that crosses our borders, and we're doing some within the nation as well. We're just approved for the TMX pipeline going out to the west coast of Canada. But the Keystone XL pipeline, for example, I think we need to remember that same narrative of adding value to a North American energy product that down in the Gulf Coast, and then shipping that not only to North Americans to utilize, but around the world. And we need to remember what that product is. It is one of the most sustainable products available compared to products that are coming from other areas around the world. For example, Premier Kenney, had mentioned that they're using carbon capture and storage. We're using carbon capture and storage off a coal-fired power plant as well, taking that carbon, adding it to carbon that's coming out of the gasification plants in North Dakota, and putting that into enhanced oil recovery, bumping up our harvest, driving down our carbon per barrel of oil. We have a methane action plan with our thermal plants up in the Lloydminster area that are driving our methane emissions down 40 to 45%. That's the energy that's going in that pipe, alongside other energy that is picked up in Montana and North Dakota along the way, and putting people to work with good careers down in the Gulf Coast, putting people in Texas and Louisiana to work in providing those jobs and providing the world with comparatively much more sustainable products. So the benefit of us working together with these cross-border efforts is truly beneficial. And I would summarize it with this: the benefit of us and our Canadian Football League of importing American college football players has greatly enhanced the caliber of football in our football league. And I would also say that the benefit of Canadian exports of hockey players to the U.S. has greatly enhanced the opportunity for the National Hockey League and the Capitals. Won not that long ago, and 3 Saskatchewan boys on the St. Louis Blues this last year. And the benefits are huge, and we should always be striving towards those benefits for our economy and, of course, our professional sports organizations.
That's pretty good. Premier Legault.
Yeah. I think when we talk about infrastructure in 2020, we also need to talk about environment. How can we reduce the greenhouse gases in North America? Do our share to save the planet. And I'm very proud to say that if you take the 60 states and provinces in North America, Quebec is first. We have the lowest greenhouse gas per capita in Quebec. The reason for that is hydroelectricity. We have surpluses that we're trying to export. But even if we have the lowest greenhouse gas per capita, we want to do more. So that's why if one of the governors has some projects about electric cars, about electric trucks, about electric buses. And like I said, if somebody is interested to have a partnership with a company making trains, subways, and streetcars, I would like to talk to your people and see what we can do together, because we really need to reduce those greenhouse gas. And I think that the young people are asking for that, and we have a responsibility.
Thank you, Premier Ford.
Well, thank you, Premier Legault, for leading into. We also produce trains, planes, automobiles in Ontario and Bombardier, and we're number 2 to Michigan. We're just slowly, just slightly behind, I should say. Michigan, we produce over 2 million automobiles a year. We have the big 5 up there. But going back to the infrastructure, we're looking at bilateral agreements with states, so we can work from province to state. Governor DeWine, I know our group, we're working together to put a great program together to make things easier for the infrastructure folks from Ohio to come up and invest in $144 billion. That's one of the largest infrastructure projects in North America that you can get involved in. We have a great organization in Toronto, and part of the Ontario government called Infrastructure Ontario. They're experts. We're one of the best in the world. I'll give a plug to our friends in Australia. They're good. We've been doing it for years. We outsource that technology. So if you come up April 21st to April 23rd, we'll set you up with the experts in Infrastructure Ontario and show you folks how we can do public-private partnerships. But come up, take advantage of the $144 billion that we have there, the $28.5 billion subway project that we're doing, and a wide range of other infrastructure projects. Ontario is an economic powerhouse in North America.
He's quite the salesman. Premier Higgs.
You know, thinking about the integration between our borders, I think of a project up in northwestern New Brunswick, in Edmundston, Madawaska, so up northern Maine is, and we're building there's a new bridge infrastructure plan there to connect. And the interesting thing about that area, and when I talk about the integration of our trade and our activities, we have a pulp mill on the New Brunswick side of the border that feeds a paper mill on the Maine side of the border. So the two are linked. We brings us to the softwood lumber agreement and the 20% tariffs that are currently on our producers, or at least 50% of our producers. And if you look at the whole supply chain between Maine and New Brunswick, we have a very integrated flow of chips, of pulpwood, of tops, of going back and forth that feed the industries on either side of the border. So the infrastructure that we have that moves our materials around is unique, I think, in terms of the integration, but it's strategic in order for us to maintain that business atmosphere and that business to be viable.
Speaking of Maine, by the way, Governor Mills, I don't know if she's here, but we will be having our summer meeting in Maine, and we're looking forward to Toronto, but we also invite you to cross over the border right from where you are to come to visit us. A lot of the governors will be at the summer meeting in Maine, so it won't be that far to go. So
to that point, I think of Campobello Island, where President Roosevelt's summer home was. Yeah. We can't even get to that without going through Maine. So we talk about access and such, and I suppose you've probably been to Campobello.
There you go. Okay, well, Premier Kenney.
Well, I think your question was about cross-border infrastructure. I'd just make one point to echo what we heard from the private sector panel, which is how critically important regulatory certainty is in moving forward, because... you
have the same kinds of issues?
Exactly. And I mean, Doug can talk to this in Ontario, but I know I was in the federal government when we announced the new Detroit-Windsor border crossing bridge, the Gordie Howe Bridge, oh, yeah. I think in 2010 or 2011, it's a decade ago. Yep. And as you know, that became a huge political fight and years and years and years of delay. The opportunity costs, the infrastructure costs go up. The only people that make money on these deals are the lobbyists and the lawyers. And we have the same thing going on with the Keystone XL pipeline, which has now, there was a 7-year process leading to a veto, and then 2 presidential permits and endless litigation. Finally, it appears to be ready to proceed. But this, investors are not prepared to wait endlessly to risk their shareholders' money in these kinds of projects. And neither should we as political leaders. When approvals are given, especially on cross-border infrastructure, we have to seize the day and move forward.
Very good. Thank you.